The Beef and Barnsey Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday. Chris is on holiday and he may well join us because he kind of liked the idea of the show. So that leaves me to defend the old guys. This show all came about because I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw JR Raymond, who is, if you don't know JR has a YouTube channel that has over 50,000 subs. He does ball reviews. He does teachings on his channel. And anyway, he does a bit of React content. And he was talking about how Earl Anthony specifically would struggle in today's environment with all the urethane on the left side. So we will see how this develops. Bring it. JR and I both have fairly thick skin. So I want this to be like a real sports debate, a Tom Brady, Joe Montana, a LeBron, Michael Jordan debate. You can swear if you want to. It's not going to upset me too much. So without further ado, here is Mr. JR Raymond. What's going on, JR?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Not too bad. So I've somewhat run the bus over you with the title of this video, which is I actually used ChatGPT to come up with this. So I substituted bowling for golf and Earl Anthony for Jack Nicklaus, and I said I need a title for a podcast. Let me find this now. I need a title for a golf podcast. I've got the whole. Need a title for a golf podcast. I have a guest coming on who believes that Jack Nicklaus in his prime couldn't win on the PBA Tour in 2024. How about something like Generations Apart, Golf Legends, Prime versus Modern Day, the great debate, Jack Nicklaus versus today's PBA Tour, gives that heated Clash of the Titans feel, was what ChatGPT said. I said, how about something more clickbait? Was my response to ChatGPT.
You got it.
And it said, Jack Nicklaus wouldn't survive today's PBA Tour. Bold claims exposed. And did Jack Nicklaus peak too soon? Today's tour might have eaten him alive. So that was ChatGPT. Here is our resident old guy.
The resident old guy. I like it.
Lay out how we got here. And then we can sort of pick apart some of the points.
All right, so the argument through time on Facebook actually got twisted quite a bit. It was weird. People love to do that. I know it never happens at all. So the debate actually started when a guy. I was talking about the crosses, like who you follow, the importance of the importance of your cross in today's game. Like if you're following people who are doing the wrong thing, it's going to have a very big effect on how you play the lanes and whether you're going to be successful or not. Well, this guy came on and basically just degraded me from day one. This guy that's never done anything, he's never won on tour, blah, blah, all this down the road. And then he said, well, the greats of all time never complained about these things. And I gave him pushback. I said, I hear it all the time. Exactly. These guys don't know. They have no idea what actually is complained about. Some don't make it as public as I do, but they do complain about these things. So I just tried to make it known that these complaints are actually really large at the PBA Tour level. And he just he just kept going at me saying, well, Earl Anthony, he never struggled with these things. He never had any complaints. And I said, well, it was a completely different era. Like the transition that they went through there was completely different than what we go through now. And he said, well, and this was the exact quote, if you put Earl Anthony in his prime on today's tour, he would dominate. And so basically he was saying Earl Anthony, with his physical game at that time, the way he liked to play the lanes, the things he did with the ball, put him on tour today, and he would dominate everybody on tour. I completely disagree with that. Now, the argument got twisted because then people started saying, well, he would adapt. Yeah, but that's not the argument. He would adapt. Of course he would adapt. And the other argument can't change to, well, if he grew up in this era, he would be a different bowler. 100% concede that. 100% he would be a different bowler. He would probably figure out a way to create more power, but his 250 to 300 RPMs with all these guys that have 600 with the more and more lefties and the two-handed lefties and crossing around with people and the right-handers coming in front and the modern day oil patterns and the amount of volume on the lanes now, like, I just think that style of game has almost no chance on tour today. I mean, just with the way the lanes are ran, the way the lanes are, with the bowling balls that are there, with the rev rate that's there, the transitions are just so hard.
There's a little bit to unpack there. I did bowl the World Series, and I did see that every lefty with a pulse made the TV show. Mm-hmm. So I'm finding it difficult to believe that Earl wouldn't have found a way to make the TV show.
Now hold on.
World Series.
I agree.
Just so I'm just putting that part out of there. The part that I wanted to unpick a little bit.
Here's a guy who knows.
Yeah, Charlie Tapp.
The bit that you were chatting about that I wanted to pick apart just a little bit was that you kind of made it that in their era, if the current players went into their era, they would dominate because they had more rev rate.
I might have went a little too far with that, but
that was the part where I needed to that was the bit where I needed to slow you down a little bit, because me and Chris have this debate a lot, and it is mainly around Walter, but I feel like Chris kind of feels like he catches a little shade also, in that there isn't a world in which some of these younger guys think that Walter Ray could beat them. Now, first of all, Walter's 65 or 64, whatever he is now.
65.
So
yeah,
that's really difficult. And second of all, it's like the way the lanes are now. Yes. The way the lanes are now, it's just like there is such a advantage to rev rate, whereas there wasn't necessarily in the past. Yeah. Everybody's coming and dancing because they're supposed to be on holiday. But Chris, I'll give you the floor a little bit here. What is your?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of way because of how patterns are right now, and the same reason you could say. I mean, there's a reason why the rev rate didn't develop as fast as it did, because, it wasn't as suitable. Bill Lillard wasn't as dominant as era, despite basically having the most powerful game. Harry Smith was good, but he wasn't, according to some legends, he was really good and they changed the rules for him, but it wasn't the end all be all because of lack or because of whatever else. So environmentally, it's part of it, but I don't think the world sees any way where Walter could be dominant right now. And I watched it. I watched him beat all the power players from fifth arrow, from sixth arrow, from first arrow. He beat him from all of them. Now, he played 10 on the show or 5 on the show, but he beat him doing all of that stuff before then. And it's somewhat environmental is what makes the players of the era the best players. There hasn't. But it's also fair to say that at 50, you don't throw the ball as well as you did at 30. It might.
We were kind of, and I was trying to. Yeah, it definitely looks the same. That's for sure. So like you look at somebody like Walter, and his rev rate's not any lower now than what it was. If it is, it's maybe 10, right? It's not much different. But what Stu actually made a pretty good point earlier. He was talking about, just because you are hitting the same target necessarily doesn't mean it's all the same physically. So like maybe missing it at the bottom, the rotation's not quite the same. The consistency of the release is just not the same, even though you can hit the same target. might not necessarily be conducive to what you're trying to do, and that would be the issue. So I can concede to that. I can understand how age comes into play there, but I think the argument, saying that those guys in their prime could compete on this right now, I think it's silly of an argument to say, because of the way the lanes are, because of the technology. I mean, even giving them the technology of today, I don't think, except for like the example of the World Series, of course, where
I know.
the lanes are just.
I think I want to bring up that Norm point again. It said Norm held his own against modern players for a while. Norm had 2 fantastic weeks back to back where we put out 2 patterns on 2 lanes, and both weeks and both times he was able to do basically the same thing on both lanes because of his skill set. That's kind of my point. We don't see that very often, where like the super high rev rate wasn't really as big of an advantage those 2 weeks, especially the second week in Jonesboro when he won, because I don't remember everybody on that show, but I remember Shota was on that show also. And in Indy, he literally was against all of the power players. Like West made it, Doherty made it, Belmo was the top seed, or Belmo was the second. I can't remember, but he beat Belmo in the final. So I just think that like the reason why the game is the way it is, a lot of it is to do with the lane guy and what he. And this isn't to say that EJ wouldn't be the best bowler on tour or Simon wouldn't be the best bowler on tour. They just wouldn't be the best bowler on tour every week by as big a margin. That's kind of the point. Yeah, nobody cares if the party goes behind Chris. It's not going to make any difference. But that's
and my own Randy Peterson moment. The next year in Jonesboro, that's where I bowled AJ and lost a troop with 260. So the fascinating thing about 2 patterns is the guys don't like doing 2 different things, and so they don't move left nearly as fast on the lane that they normally do when the other lane's short and they're playing straight with your thing. And so it's more of a psychology thing than anything, but it's fascinating. And that's where Norm thrived, is when guys had to do 2 different things. He could repeat whatever tool he wanted. And most guys aren't. That's not a thing that we don't bowl on 24 games of breakdown.
Right. Anymore. I think one of the things that I want to clarify, that the one thing that really just frustrates me with some of the older generation is the lack of appreciation for what some of these guys do today. Like the way these guys can manipulate the ball. A lot of the older generation, I say a lot, I can't say it. Maybe I should just say some of the older generation like to make the claim that these guys just aren't nearly as accurate, which you could say that about some, but I think they're more talking league bowlers. They're seeing kids, 2-handed kids, just throw it all over the place, and you put a brand new bowler ball in their hand, all of a sudden they go from 180 to 210. I get it. Like I've always said, I concede league bowling has gotten easier, but I would not say that the PBA tour has gotten easier by any means. Maybe it has for specific styles, but that's the other point I want to make is the lane man has control. He can shut out high rev rate guys if he wants. He can make it to where Frankie Lavoie basically has the best chance, or Norm Duke has the best chance, or Walter. Like you can manipulate the lanes enough to make certain styles be unsuccessful. And that's the one downfall of the sport, right? Is not always the physically most gifted or best bowler is going to win. There's a lot of variables that go into it. And I think, one of those biggest variables today is the cross, the transition, the things you have to deal with going from pair to pair. I think it's a different animal today than what it was then. Now, Chris, I know you're the old dinosaur. You probably bowled a little bit more back then. So you should know a little bit more than I would about the old crosses and how much the lanes transitioned then versus now. But like you said something about Mark Roth on the post talking about how everybody thought he was a higher rev rate than what he really was. And you said he's only like 350.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised, and everything. My rev rate's down now compared to what it was. It's just, I was still going to Team USA 3-4 years ago, and I'm still right in the same range number. The max numbers are at 450, which you don't use very often. You
Mm-hmm.
can't keep it lane, but 400 is kind of the average still, and but relative to the field, I was the power tweener. Now Tommy's the power tweener at 475.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy hadn't made a show his first 10 years on tour, didn't make a show right at 15, and now he hasn't made one from left to 15.
Right.
And, it's just in 5-6 years. So, I mean, it just is what it is from that standpoint. And certainly environments contribute into it. I think it's also a little bit disingenuous to imply that Belmo wasn't also one of the most accurate players through the best parts of his run.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to just, there's a reason why Bob Vespi didn't dominate in an era.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because he couldn't hook it the most. One, they didn't let him do it all the time, which is a little bit different than now. We relatively stay in the same kind of box of patterns. But, he didn't hit his target the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so that changed. That's where Roth was the dominant player in his era. He was the highest rev rate. He had more tools than a lot of guys. And he also was he was one of the best spare shooters, which will allow you to make the next assumption he was one of the most accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, I just wanted to pull you up. This is another thing that irritates me. It wasn't your fault, JR, but you said it. You said that league bowling is easier now than it was, and it just isn't the case.
You don't think so?
Well, the highest average.
Tell me why.
The highest league averages ever. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6. 3 of them are from 20 years ago, and 3 of them are from the last 5 years on the men's side.
Okay.
Right. All of the guys who've got the most 300s are all, and obviously you've had more time to do it, but a lot of these guys, I mean, they ain't young. Like,
right.
They haven't got like Andy Naya has the most sanctioned 300s. He's got 270 or 267. I would hasten that a lot of those he ain't shooting more now than he was shooting 15 years ago. So,
I wouldn't say. Sorry, go ahead.
No, like I say, I think that for the ladies it's got easier, but for guys, I don't think it has at all. Like, I mean, when I first moved to the States, they were way, and it might be area dependent because there's always different places. But if I go through all of the records for like team scores, not many of those are recent.
Yeah, see, I guess I'm not looking at the highest scores. I'm more looking at you have a lot more bowlers averaging 200 now. So I'm looking more at the average score going up rather than the highest scores being more there.
Maybe, but there are very few leagues where the league average is more than 185.
No, I agree, but that's where I kind of agree with some of these guys where they're talking about bowling ball technology and how it's helped scores and stuff like that. I think bowling ball technology has most definitely helped the less than average or the average bowler, rec bowler, league bowler scores because of just what we're dealing with the bowling balls.
I think two-handed bowling's helped it more than anything else.
I think that's a big contributing factor also. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I just think that 500 RPMs ain't that useful when they oil the lane to 24 feet with 9 mils of oil.
You don't think so? And I know somebody made the argument that they kept doing the plastic ball tournament and Belmo never won that or whatever. Well, and that's a good point, but
no, it's not. Because when we bowled along the plastic ball tournament that Zeisig won, Belmo led by about 4 billion. He had 3 300s and 3 299s. So no, he fucking annihilated people. But that was so dumb the way they did the lanes for that. Like overall, they basically, we didn't really play on a pattern that was like today's pattern, and we didn't really play on a pattern that was like what they used to play on.
It was Shark with half the volume or something like that, and he just threw plastic.
And I mean, Belmo was making reactive ball moves.
Yeah,
he would four-pin
he
move
also
too
made
left.
some of those early, like he would throw plastic. He's thrown plastic on a few shows.
Mm-hmm.
So,
His
first title was
first
plastic.
title. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's revisionist
So I guess
history.
that's kind of where I was going with, today's modern power players trying to bowl on those patterns back then if they're forced to use plastic and rubber and stuff like that. Don't
On
you
that
think
show, just quickly on that show though, the second seed was Wayne Garber. Walter Ray
no,
made that show and Brian Zeisig. So, straight
yeah.
was great. Fun story about that time. I've told it a couple of times on the show. I actually tried to hook it a little bit, the first squad, because you could kind of hook it. And I was
Hmm.
putting service on my plastic ball, and I had no fucking clue what I was doing. I'd never used a plastic ball for like strikes. And in the break, I was in the bowling center because I didn't have any friends. And Walter Ray, who also doesn't really have any friends, was in the bowling center. And Walter was like,
That's why I leave the bowling center so I can pretend that I have friends.
yeah, what Walter Ray says, why are you putting so much surface on that? I don't fucking know, Walter, because it's a fucking plastic ball. It doesn't hook. Like, why not? Like, and he just goes, yeah, that's that. He goes something like, that's not going to work. And I was like, well, what the fuck is going to work, Walter? And he was just like, just take your plastic, use the shiny one, play the track, just don't try and do that. Okay. So then I went on this monster run and got a check. And I actually had an outside chance of making match play. But then I started leaving the 4-pin like every shot, like every single time. And I'm bowling next to Walter. And I was just like, I can't stop leaving the 4-pin. And Walter looked at me and he goes, I got you a check. I'm not making this cut for you.
That's funny.
So, and in the end, spoiler alert, what I actually needed to do was move right to get further away from the head pin. But how the fuck was I supposed to know that? I'd only ever moved left. So I'm trying to throw it harder, and it made like literally zero difference until it did. And then I just fucking flat 10'd every shot. But it was a fun tournament. It was less fun by the fact that Belmo kept shooting 300 or the front 11. But Brian Zeisig actually bowled the last. I think he had one open in the 18 games of match play. Was like it was ridiculous. He didn't have an open the last 9 games. It was daft. But that plastic ball tournament was the highest low game I'd ever seen. So we always bowl and you always look and like we bowl on cheater and everybody shoots 270 the first game and some poor fucker always shoots like 135 or something. And you're like, yeesh, long way back for this block, right? The low game in that plastic ball tournament, the first game was 187 because people couldn't mess the lanes up and it wasn't really like you were playing super big angles. And so it's just interesting that like
and that cycles back to your conversation about easier or harder. The thing that makes the game the hardest now is transition makes the game much harder in that respect. And I think your knowledge of balls and cores has to be a little bit bigger because the balls are much different in their own way versus basically there's different names on them, but nothing flared over 020. The RGs were relatively the same. You had more surface and less surface. It was a relatively simpler game to understand. You had to provide more of the versatility in that era.
Yeah,
Big differences, and that's why it was hard to do what Mark Roth did because he had both one of the highest rev rates in his era, and he had a ton of rotation, and he lofted it. And there wasn't a lot of guys that could do all three of those things.
Right. Yeah.
This is an interesting point. Earl would have had 80 titles if he'd have started 18 versus 32. See, that's one of those where I could argue the other way that life experiences and him starting at 32 made him much more focused on the fact that he knew that his career was going to be shorter. So to be able to be at 18 as wise, just worldly wise, not necessarily bowling wise, because he did bowl on tour, flaked out, left, then came back. Now, if he'd have stayed when he wasn't bowling very well on tour, would that have really worked out that well for him? You know what I mean? Because like not everybody can be Simo. who at 16 was fantastic, and then went out and bowled, basically won immediately on tour, and realistically hasn't stopped winning. Like, it's not always the best scenario. Like, the amount of guys who are like fantastic at like 18 who stink by the time they're 30 is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very difficult to say. Well, it's impossible to say. You're just coming up with arguments one way or the other. But
go ahead.
wow, that's a lot.
Okay.
That's a ton.
Here we go. Earl Anthony strategy. I love how people who never bowled with any of them, they never met them, can tell you exactly what they did. So this is my favorite already, right off the top. Earl's strategy was based on action. He was the best at it. Walter Ray, in his prime, used his knowledge in physics to determine how to correctly enter the pocket and score. I'll get back to that one.
Yes.
Whether it was loft, hand manipulation, whatever it took to get whatever ball he was using in a pocket. Bowling ball technology has pretty much gone nuts. I think needs to be a level playing field, but what do I know? Your opinion is perfectly relevant. And a lot of it, it's not uncommon that everybody assumes because Walter had a physics degree that he was the smartest bowler on tour. Now the people that have bowled with him understand that he boiled it down and basically used the same skill set Pete used, which is say he was fantastically eye-hand coordination and almost 100% feel.
Can we use the Pete Weber quote?
Huh?
Can we use the Pete Weber quote?
Go
From
ahead.
the dots to the foul line is 100% skill, and from the foul line to the pins is 100% luck.
I don't know that Walter thought that. Walter thought a flat 10 was luck, though, when physics would clearly tell you it was not.
Yeah. He's not. He was Walter Ray a lot of the time when I'm really like making an asshole out of myself, getting 7 every other shot. I think a lot about Walter Ray because Walter Ray decided what you need to do is hit the pocket and hit the pocket a lot. And in a lot of ways, Jane Sin just dominated the women's tour by just hitting the pocket a lot.
Yeah.
She just was better at hitting the pocket than the other people. She just did it more. And to suggest that Walter used any of his physics knowledge is just blatantly nonsense.
He didn't use a white hole in a bowling ball because he said it didn't matter for at least my first 12 years on tour.
What did he say to you guys about the surface at the World Championships? I don't know anything about that. You experts do whatever you think.
Yeah, I mean, he had it boiled down to a thing that worked for him. Now, his strategies were very physics-based. I mean, we looked at what he did too and went, wow, how Walter's the best player. What's he do? Oh, he hits the pocket more than everyone else. And then he makes adjustments off of it. But, you know, now his eye-hand coordination is off the charts, and his competitiveness is my favorite Walter Ray story of how competitive he is. Has nothing to do with bowling. It's Tommy, Bill O'Neill, and I and Walter on the set of 4 treadmills doing the 12-minute run for Team USA. And I'll try and boil this down, but we're going. Tommy, Billy, and I always compete. None of us run anymore. I'm the oldest by 10 years. These guys are in the 30s. I'm in my 40s. Walter's 50, and you know, wearing cargo shorts, a rope belt, and like Velcro shoes or whatever he's wearing, long socks, the whole thing. He looks like our dad, and he probably hasn't run since gym class in high school when they made him. And we're all doing that. I'm on the right, and then Tommy Blair left me, and I'm all looking. We're all doing the whole tap thing, see who goes faster, da-da-da. And we're all going, all right, who's going faster? And we're doing that. And pretty soon I hear, or on my right, I'm like, it's Walter. I'm like, what are you doing?
You're going to kill yourself.
You're going to kill yourself. And he's, and pretty soon he's running with the 4 of us as fast as he can run. It doesn't matter what it is. Walter, at the very end, we all ended up within like 0.02 of each other in this 12-minute run at a mile and a half. It's not some blistering pace, but for a bunch of old guys that don't run at all, like, I don't know how he walked the next 3 days. Wearing a knee brace. I mean, he had the whole thing going on by then. It was And that was when I really understand Walter just didn't ever want to lose at anything. Almost, it's not basketball, so you don't talk about like Jordan, but it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the old who's better, Jordan or LeBron? LeBron goes, and so Jordan goes, well, it's probably him. I am 53. Oh dear. So
anyway, we got a little off the rails on some of that, but yeah,
I think that people take everything on the internet very literally. I don't think that's new news, so to speak. But I do think that in the era that we bowl in, and I fall for it a lot of the time. I'm like, I'm never going to beat that guy. Like, I can't beat him or whatever. And then we bowl something like the Snowman, where it's just like a totally different world. Like, we might as well be playing a totally different fucking sport, right? Like, it's so different. And I go, doing this, I'm better than they are. Like, my brain can work and process what to do on this. But, like, if we bowled normally, it's just like, it's so similar now because of the way the lanes are and because of the way the balls are and because of the way all of this shit happens that it just doesn't, it just doesn't translate, shall we say. But
Sarah, what's your take on this?
Well,
the point of this is
oh my God, fuck me.
The ball reps and coaching on shots is why people are good bowlers now. And I like Tony.
I think
Tony's a great guy.
Yeah.
I think this is just my opinion on ball reps and stuff, but I think most of them are fairly useless. The only thing a ball rep is really good for, in my eyes, is if they're scouting pairs for you and kind of giving you clues or heads up of, hey, these guys were doing this on this pair. This pair is really bad, and that all just goes right back to crosses and stuff, So if most people think that these ball reps are behind you telling you what balls to throw and stuff, and it's like most of the bowlers aren't going to listen to them anyway. Bowlers are going to do what they're going to do. Like, Chris, how many times do you listen to a ball rep? Yeah, I mean, you'll take what they say, kind of nod, and then be like, okay, well, look for validation or whatever. Yeah.
But to pretend that EJ or Bomo doesn't know where to stand and ball
right.
running them up is such nonsense.
It's foolishness.
I can tell you a picture, if you trust the guy in that, of hey, the field is moving left, moving right. Yeah, I mean, you still have to figure out how to create that shape. Hey, okay, I know that there was guys in my era. If Dave Ozio was playing the gutter, I was going to go play the gutter. I knew what that shape looked like. And I knew what Hoskins was starting to bang on him. Hey, I knew I'd go play 22, and I knew what that picture was going to pretty much be like because they kind of did what they did when it was good. But you still have – it's good for an extra set of eyes on what the rest of the field's doing because you can't walk around as much. But
yeah, I mean, they what's this say?
Says, can JR chime in again with some more nonsense takes so we can laugh at him some more? I mean, that's a little rude.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I mean,
and then they hate when I come back at them.
Today.
No. That's what I love about the internet is I'm not the guy that puts up with it. Like, everybody always expects, like, oh, you own a business, you do this, you're all over the place, so you're supposed to be nice to everybody. And as soon as they're rude to me and I just give it right back to them, they get all butthurt. They're like, oh, you're not supposed to talk to me like that. I'm going to go tell on you. I'm going to tell your sponsors. Go for it.
Tell them, Travis. 2 PBA champs and 1 internet tough guy. The fact that me and JR are way closer together than me and Chris is totally irrelevant to this argument.
That's funny.
Well, there's a lot of guys on tour right now that think I'm way closer to you two than I am them. That's for sure. So.
I mean, we 3 aren't the same. One of us 3 ain't paying entry fees next year. I'm just saying.
One of us 3 ain't bowling everything next year.
Don't speak about Chris like that. He hasn't finalized his plans.
Hey, I'm not bowling everything.
Here's some revisionist history. I believe Rick Benoit said Walter. Oh, okay. Rick Benoit said Walter didn't believe in that layouts matter. I believe Walter believed that, and he was one of the worst ball testing guys I was ever with.
Because he could make them all look the same.
He could, and I mean it as a compliment, because he could literally make, no matter how bad or good it was, he could make it look the same as the ball he was testing against. And so he was useless. And not very many guys can do that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In any era, probably.
I've just found the most "it depends" question of all time. If each of you had the choice to choose the amount of righties and left that you cross with, what would your combo look like? Would you change depend on the pattern, the length, the ratio? Totally. Like, yes. Fun story. The last time I made the round robin at the US Open, I bitched out Gottschall because it was the second year in a row that you only have 3 on a pair, don't you? It was the second year in a row I bowled with 2 lefties, and I was like, do you fucking hate me? And he wanted to, but of course he couldn't, because the USBC can't have a sense of humor, because everybody takes everything they say literally, because he wanted to say, if you have to ask.
but wait a minute. I thought crosses didn't matter, and all the best in the world can make all the adjustments no matter who and what you're crossing and following.
Turned out I was one of the best in the world, because I fucking made it. I didn't
well, there you go then.
Didn't have those righties getting in my head, confusing the thought process.
See? Psychology,
yeah.
It's that psyche.
But yeah, that is 100% it depends. Because for a while, the Mark Roth pattern, I would tell Jesper all the time, if I was left-handed, nobody would fucking ever have heard of you. Because we bowl on that Mark Roth pattern, and I'd have the front 9 on the first game every time. I think I had 300, 288 one time, and I barely shot 100 over for the 8-game block. Because once the transition started, I was fucked. Move 2 left, ball goes dead straight. Open up, 4 count. Well, what the fuck do you do now? The lane's gone. And so, yeah, I think the worst thing you can ever ask a bowler for is what they want, because none of us really know what the fuck we want. Me and Chris talk about this all the time. Oh, if you could pick the pattern, I don't know. Like, because I could probably have a pattern that I bowl really good on in practice, and then EJ comes in and like goes, it's cute that you think 225 is really good on this. So now I don't want that pattern, because he's big and mean and he's beating me by 20 a game. This one's bad. So, I mean...
Yeah, I want the pattern that's easy for me and hard for everybody else. It's as easy
100%.
as that.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway,
there's good tournaments and bad tournaments. Is how easy is it to get to the money? If you guarantee a cash spot, it's really, it's a great tournament. If there's only 6 good bowlers there, it's a great tournament.
Right.
It almost can't be good enough if there's 150 really good bowlers there and you're not in the top 100 of them.
Travis says, is Highland back to normal? Yeah, they just had that one panel. It took them like 2 days to get a new panel in. Thankfully, the guy who really knew what he was doing was in the building. He got the fire put out on the panel. They got somebody out to replace the panel, and then like there was no real damage to the bowling center itself, just that panel. So that was.
This is my burner account, and then I'll hang up and listen. Could just end the argument with this: at Chris Barnes in your prime, if you bowled the 2025 season, how are you doing this year? But I'm going to hang up because I don't want my feelings hurt or anybody see me tear up with your answers. So
he's just leaving me as the hype guy. That's all.
I still think. I mean, it is generational, and now they've moved up to a different level of rev rate, and it's harder. But go ahead.
I just think my whole point on the whole thing, and I just want to end on this with this discussion as far as the old versus the new. My whole point on it is I think people just need to start understanding, yes, there's a difference between the eras, but I don't like these people that try to claim that, the guys, the best on the tour right now aren't very accurate. I don't like when they're trying to say they aren't versatile, they aren't accurate, they can't do, I don't think they realize that EJ can go from almost 600 rev rate to 450, right? So I mean, the amount of things that he can do, Belmo can do, Simo can do, Has people seen Simo like play every part of the lane, backup balls and everything? Ooh,
That's what I'm doing.
ooh.
You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Dang it, that's not right.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page. I just think that it's just you ended up being as bad as they were the opposite direction. So
You start with me, I give it back.
yeah, exactly. And like I think that
your
the
take on
easiest
this
way.
wasn't as bad as the Robert Smith one was, but okay.
You do what now? I missed that.
Your take on most of this wasn't as bad as the Robert Smith one, but
You didn't think Robert Smith would do well if he didn't get hurt?
he bowled for 12 years. He was only hurt for like 2.
Well, I mean, pretty much hung him up because he got hurt, didn't he?
Well, yeah, after 10 years and 7 titles.
The problem is, JR,
And
right?
never finishing in the top 10 in points. But other than that, yeah.
What me and you consider
It was fun to watch, though.
Yeah, I was about to say, what
had
me
it.
and you consider to be good and what Chris considers to be good, there's levels to this. Like when I'm in the bowling center in the pro shop and somebody goes, that guy's a great bowler, and I go, he stinks. Well, relative to them, he's a great bowler. Relative to me, he stinks. This is the same with Chris. It's within, he's like close to being a Mount Rushmore guy. Me and you are like, I had my Tuesday in Texas or whatever the fuck it was. Was it a Thursday in Oklahoma?
Robert Smith was the most talented guy in my era. But
Who was?
Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't like hooking the ball wasn't an advantage.
No, and that's the thing, though. Yeah, because that
won more than 2 in a year and a half than Robert won in 10 years.
Yeah, hooking it.
Same era.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, but
my point is
got better at winning that did what he did.
Oh, 100%. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think people need to understand that I'm not saying that rev rate is everything. I'm not saying that just because you have rev rate, you can be good. Like it takes a whole lot more than that. But at the end of the day, my point is with the top players on tour now, your Simo, Belmo, EJ, Troop, these guys that, you cannot sit there and try and say that they're not accurate or that they're not versatile, and then try to claim that the guys back in the day are better.
You know what confirmed that for him, Knowlton?
He is.
That you've won 2 titles on his watch. That's what confirmed that he wasn't in his prime. We'll let you.
Walter's, just innate desire to win above everything else in life. Robert would have been he would have been a Walt Rushmore, I think. But
yeah.
He enjoyed life and he enjoyed his ride along the way a lot more.
Hey, let's be honest. A lot of these guys that have a lot of physical ability are not the brightest crayons in the box. That's a lot of the issue.
Well, I don't think Rob's dumb by any stretch.
I'm not talking about him. I'm just saying,
like a Wayne Webb, they just enjoyed life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying he's dumb. I'm talking about some of today's modern bowlers. You got a lot of guys out there that are physically gifted and they just don't know what the hell they're doing.
The physical part's just the entry fee.
Do what?
The physical part's just the entry fee to be on tour now.
Right.
Same as football. I mean, you have to be a certain physical or be super, super fast just to be there. And then they find out if you can add. And some of these guys can't. They can't stay out of trouble. They can't do the things coaches ask them to do. And this is why these first and second rounders with these unbelievable physical traits can't stay in the league. And
I'm pretty sure I just got called dumb.
All that is.
I was wondering if it was that or if he was referring to me saying that Knowlton won on his watch because it wasn't on my watch. I wasn't old enough. So I didn't
It's
know.
either I'm dumb or that one or the other.
All right, Chris. Well, you get back to your holiday. Me and JR will finish out this bullshitting. We're going to talk a little bit about bowling balls. So yeah, and roll Tide, motherfuckers. Bye-bye, Alabama. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
See you later, Chris.
You lost to the spelling bee champs. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, so that's what that's all about. So anyway,
they did.
Real quick, let's just talk about bowling balls a little bit because everybody likes talking about balls. I think I should have that as a t-shirt. Everybody likes talking about balls.
Mhm.
When you're doing ball videos, like as somebody who, I mean, we do a lot of ball videos. You do like pretty much all the brands, right? Like you kind of pick and choose. You don't do like literally every single ball that's ever existed.
No,
But
yeah, they send me pretty much everything except the low end stuff, low to medium end stuff. All the high end stuff gets sent, so I try to do them all.
yeah, but for me anyway, the hardest thing by far about doing ball videos is trying to explain that the viewer is watching in 2D and you just miss everything. Now, I have tried so many different ways to film these videos to try and figure out a solution for this. Is that
Hmm.
the thing that you struggle with the most? What do you find is the hardest thing to communicate what you're seeing to the viewer?
So a lot of the times with the reviews, a lot of people get confused because they're always looking for how much the ball moves left to right. You know,
Yeah.
people aren't quite understanding, like terms like using, a slower ball versus a quicker ball. And I try to explain the difference between slow and quick in most of the reviews that I do, so people can kind of get a grasp of, the response time of a bowling ball or of a big solid, like, whatever, just pick a big solid versus a weaker pearl. Response times are going to be different. And that response time shouldn't be looked at as left to right motion. It should be looked at as front to back. And I think that's the hardest thing to get people to realize is one ball is, it's not necessarily hooking more. It's just hooking earlier or later. Like that's what you said earlier. It's like the difference between the biggest and strongest ball in the world and, it's it's maybe three boards of total overall hook. And most people don't understand that. They think you're going all the way across, the lane. They think it's hooking the entire lane. It's really not. I mean, the ball's skidding most of the lane. The most the ball can actually hook. There's how many boards from board one to the pocket? 17 and a half ish.
Yeah.
Right. So your ball can literally only hook that much. And how many people are actually throwing it out to one? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
100%.
your ball's maybe hooking 5, 6.
But no matter how much you kind of say this, I just mean like I talked to a few different YouTubers, like some guys who have massive channels, not necessarily bowling, just in general. And like one of the things my buddy Jared says is don't say something that you're not going to show, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so don't, like talk about the menu system if you're not going to show the menu system. Like just
Right.
simple things like, and I just think that like for us, even if I'm saying this ball's hooking earlier, the camera angle just doesn't really show it in that regard. So I even like got like a GoPro type camera and like wore a baseball cap to try and see if like that would give me a different. It just made me seasick, to be honest. Like watching the footage back because my head moves around too much.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, it's bad motion. It's like the Google Glasses thing. Bad.
yeah, it's cool.
But hey, hold that thought. I'll be right back. I gotta make a run real quick. I'll be right back. Give me 2 minutes.
No worries. Yeah. So so that's the hardest part for me about ball reviews and like trying to communicate that over to you guys. So that's why I end up trying to just talk about where the balls fit relative to the other balls and where I would put them in my arsenal, because it's just so difficult to define the shapes, and because the balls, relatively speaking, hook quite similar amounts, just slightly different shapes. Like I say, it makes it really difficult. I understand, guys want to kind of complain about the ball companies releasing too many balls, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the market dictates that people want more new balls, so that's why that's happening. And that's somebody says try and extend tall vertical arm tripod so the viewer can see down at an angle. I do that already. Yeah, we do that. Stephanie says, I won't buy them until I learn what I have. Well, that's a very good point. That is what you need to do. put the camera in front of the ball return. I've kind of tried that. Brad and Kyle do that a little bit. I just don't think. I think it comes too quickly. Like it's hard to process it. I'm gonna mess around with the frame rates a little bit to see if that makes it any better. I need to ask JR about that actually to see. Yeah, we changed to that kind of angle. That was the other thing I meant to ask you. Like, when you're doing it, do you change the frame rate at all? Have you messed around with that?
No. I try to keep mine as simple as possible. I mean, I haven't even, just like you, I keep playing around with certain angles, like what's going to give people the best angle of being able to see. I've tried the low angle at the bottom. I've tried high angles. Like it's just,
I kind of like the high above, like looking down on it. I kind of like that the best as a bowler. Somebody says that Darren has the best angles. That's interesting. I think that Darren has by far the best production. I think a lot of the time as a player and as somebody who wants to see it, I personally don't think that like you really get a good view of what the ball does. But I guess that's just because I've spent so many times on the concourse, you know what I mean? Looking at balls. I just can't stop it. But like just looking at balls go down the lane. Yeah. It's just kind of difficult. I played around with Specto a little bit and it just didn't really give it to me, you know, the react, you know, what I wanted out of it. Some people are saying drones. Do you realize how much money I make out of doing a ball video? Like, I mean, like the greatest ball video of all time might have made like $500. Like, I mean, I'm going to employ a drone pilot. Like, come on, bro.
Right. Yeah. I think, I mean, ball reviews are kind of like, you know, I've thought about like investing in stuff and trying to make my, well, I guess you call the production better and stuff. And it's like, what could I really do to make them better? Right. Like it's just try to get as much information about, you know, about the ball as you can out there without overdoing it and just let people make a decision, you know?
Yeah, but who's going to fly it?
Yeah. How are you going to throw the ball and fly the drone?
I mean,
I guess you could have it hovering.
I mean, I already have to have a fixed camera angle. Like,
Yeah.
what am I going to have? A fixed drone camera angle? Like, I have to buy insurance in case the drone goes crazy.
You could have two drones, one facing one direction, one facing the other, and just have them hovering at a certain height because they do hover.
Yeah. And like, we're not going the drone route. Just stop.
Higher camera angles, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like that one. I've actually got like a I guess it's almost like a monopod, but it attaches to a desk.
Stu does have a third arm. What are you talking about?
But
oh, wait, that's a third leg.
I think that works quite well. Like, I don't know what you use when you stream at a tournament. I guess you just use a tripod at the back.
Yeah, usually I just so for a while I was actually using a camera, but the batteries die so quick. Like I'd have to change batteries in between game every time. And it's just like, so I got to have 5-6 batteries to get through the block. And then I'm holding people up because I'm not ready to bowl right away. I kind of just stopped doing it. And sometimes I use my phone because these iPhones, the cameras on these iPhones are still quite ridiculous. So they're pretty good. I mean, they're not high quality zooming and, you know, whatever, but they're still pretty good. But yeah, I mean, you've got to, if you're going to be doing footage and stuff while you're bowling, like you've got to have somebody there with you. Like Darren's got it made, you know, having, I forget the kid's name, but Jesse. He's got somebody with him, Jesse. Yep. And then you got Brad and Kyle, you know, they have their guy, their kid that comes with them. And, you know, it's just, if you have somebody that can do it for you, it makes it a whole lot easier for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, I just meant like when I set up now, like I say, I've bought these like extended, they're just one pole. They like attach to a desk. And like, it's so much better because like, you know, someone knocks into the table when you've got like the tripod out It's a fucking disaster. Whereas these things, like the table doesn't really ever tip over, especially if you got a phone attached to it. So it just makes life so much easier. There's so many more places you can attach them to. Hey, Mr. Eddie, how we doing? I hope you haven't blown away. He is right around the area that is going to be maybe being hit tonight. So
yeah, Florida's going to get crushed here. It looks like.
With you guys again, I still don't really understand the physics behind how this keeps happening so often, or so violently. It's not necessarily that it's so often. It's just that the ones now seem to be so much worse. So anyway, right. Somebody says reactor gloss versus power edge. I don't necessarily have huge thoughts yet. Haven't really had chance to play around. The only board with power edge on that I've used is the Phase AI. So I don't have a Phase AI with reactor gloss on it. So it's kind of a little difficult.
Those are their different polishes.
Yeah, like Storm have changed. I imagine they're probably going to change over most of the balls to this new power edge.
Whatever they were using before sucked, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what the problem was, from my understanding of it, I think that when Reactor Gloss first came out, I think that it came out at a time when Storm were adapting their covers to fit with USB-C specifications. So I think that a lot of the blame went on to Reactor Gloss, whereas they were trying to make sure everything was like perfect. And like, I think that put us back quite a bit. And then Reactor Gloss has got a bad vibes because of that. And in recent times, I don't think it's been that much of a problem. Like, I don't mind it at all. But in general, the Power Edge is more like a compound. So it's going to be, it's going to dig in more in the oil. Chris thinks it's much more like the original. God, what's it called? What Storm polished with everything with for forever. I forget the name of it. But anyway, what it was beforehand, the 1500 grit, the factory polish, whatever it was called. Somebody will tell me in the chat in a minute. But I don't know because I haven't used it yet. I have got some now, so I can play around a little bit. Step Reactor Shine. No. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, Power Edge is going to be in between like step 2 and the polish, I believe. But like I say, I got some sample bottles through and I can never play around with it. But I believe that that's going to be the polished finish going forward from my understanding. But I haven't got that 100% confirmed, but that's my understanding. So, yeah. So out of the other brands, is there any balls that are like, you're like, wow, this one's cool?
I'm kind of Brunswick's got these two, the Vaporize and that Mesmerize seem to be really liking. Yeah, a lot of guys are really liking those balls because they're a perfect like 1-2 combination. With that Mesmerize being a slower type of shape, and then once that gives you that deflection half 10 flat 10 type of look where when you move left and it doesn't want to finish, it just kind of uses up too much rotation. The Vaporize is just a little bit quicker ball and it's a perfect step up. So if I'm going to tell people, like I've sold a lot of those in the shop because people are always coming in like, I need a 2-ball setup, give me the perfect 1-2 ball, and that's it right there for me, hands down. Right now those are the two that are doing the best that I can physically see, that I can see people using and having success with, because we're obviously not bowling tour stops and stuff right now. So seeing them out there isn't as easy. But in league and some of the side tournaments and stuff around here, those two are doing really well. I've got a lot of the reviews coming that I haven't done the Storm AI yet. I've seen a lot of people talking about that one. That looks really good. People are really excited about that one, but I got a lot of them on the floor that I still haven't drilled. A couple of the motive pieces, some other different stuff that's coming. The new Raptor.
Yeah, gold looking ball. Is that
The new Gold Raptor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't drilled it yet. It's sitting here.
What did you think of the Ion Max?
Ion Max is too strong, in my opinion. It was just that cover for me really, really bogged down. But being somebody, for me, as somebody that's a lot more forward than most guys, it just that using a ball that gets moving forward, that actually, slows down like that, it would have required me to really change the layout. But the way I do my reviews, I try to keep them as similar as possible, so you can kind of see.
Wise?
Usually it's like 4.5, 45 by 4.5 by 45. So
wow, that's a strong layout for the way balls are now. Holy
yeah, and that's because I use them on league patterns when I do my reviews.
Even so, like for me, like I virtually never outside of the Ion Pro, I almost don't drill anything that has less than a 5-inch pin.
Yeah, like the motive stuff is the stuff that I'll go 5-inch pins with most of the time.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, for me, the Ion Max is early, but for me, it doesn't. I don't see it as bogging down. I see it as being like super continuous. Like for me, the harsh reality does what you're talking about. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it gets into the lane and then it doesn't, like, it just uses a lot of energy. Like the gem did that for me as well. Like the gem was fantastic, but it was like a 1-game ball for me. Like I couldn't keep it in play for long enough.
Yeah, see, it was different for me. The gem was a good one that I could go around the lane and get it to retain rotation.
And a lot of people did. Like for me, that ball was out of play. Like it was much better when I was going straighter. So the more that I open the lane, like I kind of explain that to people, like the more you move left, the longer the lane is, if that makes sense, because your ball covers more distance. When you bowl straighter, you go in 60 feet. And I don't know the exact calculations, but you're going 62 feet or whatever when you hook around the lane. So it's kind of like you need it to continue more. And for me, the Ion Max is the closest thing to the reality that I've had. Like I feel like it's really continuous. I put polish on it. It was really good. So, well, I put step 2 on it, but like it's been really useful for me in that way. And that's how the reality was for me. I could use it shiny or dull. So,
I think that's a good point for the audience too, is to understand that, a bowling ball that doesn't necessarily work for me, but does work for you. Like people need to see that not everybody's the same. And just because I see a bowling ball a certain way doesn't mean it's going to be that way for them. So
well, it's also like to me, that's a very strong layout for a pretty strong ball. So like, depending on which balls you have and whatever else. And like you could drill that ball again and test it in a different center and it looked great. So it's all about, relative to the environment, like we were talking about before. How did you drill what did you think of the Ion Pro then?
That one, see, and to me, that one was a lot like the Ion Max, but it wasn't nearly as strong. So as far as the stopping goes, I got it. It lost too much rotation for me too quick. So it was just that it was almost like it was a really quick response getting from going sideways to this really fast.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ASIM balls are that way for me because I'm already not a high rotation type of guy. So if I'm not using higher rotation and it's a ball that's going to lose the rotation quicker, I'm kind of in trouble there. That's why I like the Sublime Focus. I love that. That ball is phenomenal. That one to me does exactly what you're talking about the Ion Max for you. The Sublime for me is the more continuous ball. So
I mean, like Sublime Focus to me is pretty much a phase 2 replacement.
A little bit stronger, better, I think.
Yeah.
My phase 2 is a lot weaker, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't have it a lot weaker, but yeah. I mean, somebody else who's been watching JR's clickbait titles.
I love all the fans. Clickbait titles. At least you recognize it. Problem is most people don't listen.
Are you going to plan on doing some things with Cody? Because didn't your YouTube channel like include Cody's name now?
Yeah. He was supposed to kind of start doing more with the channel, and then kind of after tour trials, that fried him out because he just missed the tour trials cut.
Yeah.
And now he hurt his knee again, so it's like he's not bowling at all, and he's doing his poker thing now. So I just kind of have left him be, and I'm just here. So because I was going to bring him on and have him kind of help out and do some things here, but he just, he's kind of going a different direction, which is okay. He did move to Michigan in my area. He just lives a couple miles down the road from me now, but maybe eventually once he heals up and he gets his act together,
Yeah, no, it's like people think that it's like kind of easy putting the content together, and it's like a slog, like especially when you've got to film it and then you've got to edit it and then you got to put it down. Like it's a lot. Like doing ball reviews is really fun until you're like, shit, these videos have to come out in like 4 days, and like like editing Barnes' videos are like the easiest thing in the world because he's really good in front of the camera, and like he very rarely makes a fuck up, like says something he doesn't want to, or so I basically just end up adding the ball logos, like adding a couple of like please like us. I correct it every time he calls the ball the wrong name. And then put on like, which day this ball's coming out, which is nowhere near where Chris says it's going to come out. But outside of those things, all of the stuff he does is like super easy. He sends me the video. I virtually never need to cut anything out. And people kind of like that it's just, like one take almost.
That's what I've noticed with a lot of my reviews is people like that. I don't cut it. I don't edit it. I don't do all that stuff. I leave it all in. And the problem with that is exactly like you said. There's times I don't even know what core is in the ball. I don't know what cover is that. This actually, it looks like a solid. Is it a solid? And then I find out it's a hybrid, and it's like, whatever. I just kind of roll with it because I want people to understand that it's like I'm not looking into these balls and trying to go into the reviews with preconceived notions. Like I don't want to think this ball's supposed to do something that it's not.
This is Chris's new one, the Ion Max Pro Tour, because this is funny, actually. So when Chris did the video for the Ion Max, he called it the Ion Pro Max, the entire video. Right. So the Storm reps are now going nuts, like the sales reps, because they get at least one person every week call it the Ion Pro Max. And they're like, Ion Max. Fucking Chris, Ion Max. So then I was laughing with Zach. He goes, well, I had 3 more of them today. And I said, see, that's because we have reach. Like reach isn't really debatable. It's like positive and negative reach is the same. It's just reach. Like you can't say we have no influence and then complain that we called the ball the wrong name. Well, if we have no influence, then it wouldn't matter what Chris called the ball.
Right.
Like if nobody was watching, it wouldn't matter, would it? So here's a good question. X Lumpers is a so Lumper is a frequent contributor. He says, help me understand. It might be she, I don't know. Why does it seem stronger balls like the gem need to see friction down lane to hook? I'll let because we answer these questions all the time. I'll let JR go with this and see what he thinks.
So I think a lot of people are looking at hook differently than what you should be looking at it. Again, that goes back to the left to right motion that people see. People think people see something like a gem that smooths out and doesn't necessarily looks like it goes left in a strong motion, and they say, oh, this ball is just weak, when in reality that ball is actually, it's picking up the lane really soon and it's losing rotation really early, so it's smoothing out and it gives you the illusion that it's not hooking, when in fact it's hooking more than you expect. So a lot of the time when you get a big strong ball on a lot of volume, and then you see friction down lane where they're fresh, it looks like that ball gets all the way down lane and then it hits the friction and goes left. So now it looks like it hooks more. And a lot of the times it's just it's hooking the same amount, it's just hooking in a different spot. So I think people just need to understand that's the whole difference between seeing the lane front to back rather than left or right. You should start looking at motion, whether you need the ball to hook sooner or later. A lot that's kind of like if I just did about the 10 pin. A lot of people, they assume a flat 10 is because their ball's burning up. And in most cases, it's because the ball actually gets too far down the lane, so especially in league bowling.
But it might get too far down the lane because it burnt up.
It could be, yeah. There is a difference, and you just got to be able to see the difference there. This
reminds me a little bit of those videos that they do. Me and my friend Sean are obsessed by them now, where the guy is writing on the board and says, "You think this says this? So this obviously he changes one letter, says this." And
yeah.
Like, I love those videos. Those are great. the ball
Yeah.
gets down the lane too far, not because it's burning up early. What? No. So the way I agree largely with all of what he was saying. Why does it seem like they need the friction down lane to hook? They need the friction down lane because they've lost their energy in the first part of the lane. So they will still hook on the friction down the lane, even if they've lost most of their rotation. It'll still make some move. It's kind of a bit weird, but it's just kind of the way it is. And it's because it loses all of its energy earlier. So when you're bowling on carry down, the oil has moved from the earlier part of the lane to the later part of the lane. So now there's the same amount of oil because it's a bit like oil cannot be created or destroyed, so to speak. It's just moved further down the lane. So your ball loses energy in the front part of the lane. That's why if you use a shinier, faster response ball like JR's Vaporize, like a Virtual Energy Blackout, all black balls look the same. That's why it works out on the carry down, because the cleaner ball gets through the front, doesn't lose it, and still has its energy to be able to cut through that carry down. Layman's terms.
Yeah, I think that's one of those big things that a lot of bowlers do need to learn is just because your ball, you're using a strong ball and it looks like it's not hooking, that doesn't necessarily mean you need a stronger ball. You need a quicker response ball. So as you say, ball could be hooking sooner, losing more rotation in the front part of the lane, the middle part of the lane, and not have enough rotation down lane because of the carry down. And now it's not going to get through that and go through the pins. That's when those quicker response, less friction in the front part of the lane type of bowling balls come into play. So a lot of people think they need a stronger ball when in fact, the weaker ball. That's why some people get confused. They go bowl in certain events and they're like, man, I'm bowling on this 36-foot pattern that hooks a ton, but for some reason this hustle is hooking so much more than my gem. Why? Well, it's not really. It's hooking in a different part. It's losing energy. The gem's losing energy. The hustle's storing energy. There's a difference. So I just want people to start kind of paying attention to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that bowlers who are trying to educate people, the worst thing they can do is the thing that really annoys me when people say it is, pros look at the lane front to back and amateurs look at the lane side to side. Because I feel like it's such a we're right and you're wrong. And a lot of the left to right is created by front to back. So it doesn't really matter if you look at it as left to right. It doesn't. Rhino, I spoke to Rhino about it, and Rhino was like, bro, I always play the friction. Throw it, bang it off the friction. And almost every other good bowler that you ever speak to wants to find hold. But he was a great bowler and he bowled great when they were hard. So it's all it all just mashes into one. And I just feel like sometimes people say out loud, a lot of people who do videos and a lot of people who do videos that are really popular will say things like, you just got to see the lane front to back, but then they don't explain what that means or anything. And it's just well, do you even know what that means? Or are you just saying that because you think that's the buzz phrase to it's not helpful.
Yeah. I think a lot of the guys they think if you don't say front to back, then they won't be thought of as a good bowler because the good bowlers see it front to back.
Yes. 100%. And some of the good bowlers who are saying it, I don't think necessarily understand. They couldn't put it into words, what they're meaning. So, it's just, I feel like it's just another way for it not to be collaborative with the viewer and try to explain to them. It's it just is what it is. So anyway, any shout outs? I know you're Mr. Bowler X these days. So
those are my people.
Yeah, exactly. Have you got any specials going on you want to mention?
I have a clinic this weekend. I don't know if it's full yet. I had 8 spots left as of yesterday. So
where's that?
It's here at Waterford Lanes in Waterford, Michigan. We're running it's from 11 to 2, 11 to 1, and then 2 to 4. We're doing 2 different squads, just $59. It probably is full. You can go over to 10pindoctors.com and check it out. I'm not sure.
So what
but
do you
the
do in one
one,
of those?
so we focus, it depends on what kind of clinic. This is one of the cheaper ones just to kind of get people to come out and try to get some coaching, get some. Cody will be involved in this. He's going to be here helping. And we do talk a little bit about ball dynamics and trying to fix releases, at least try to teach a little bit more modern releases. I do get a lot of the older generation guys that come to these clinics because they want to learn. They want to learn to create a little bit more rev rate, create a little bit more leverage and power. And we do focus an awful lot on release, which is what we'll be focusing on this weekend, is mostly release, some physical game stuff. And if there's anything major in fit, we do take a look at fits too, because I don't know how much pro shop type of work you do, Stu, but if your fit is incorrect or if it's not even close, you're going to have a hard time doing the things you need to do with a bowling ball. So I want to make sure people are taken care of there. So, yeah, so that is this weekend.
Just one other thing, like your fit as you get older is a constant change. It isn't like if your fit was right 5 years ago, isn't necessarily right today. So that's just something to bear in mind. It's not, most times the shop isn't going to like charge you to come in and just check a fit or whatever. Most good shops aren't, because that's an avenue to getting a new customer or, you know, getting some sales or whatever. So, you know, just be aware though. Like if the guy, if your fit feels comfortable and the guy wants to change every pitch, change the span a lot and whatever, just be a little careful. Like if it feels okay, a small tweak could make it feel great. If it feels okay and they want to change everything about it, to me, that's sometimes a little bit of a red flag. But
yeah, the one thing I always say is there is no right fit. The only right fit is what is comfortable and what allows you to do what you want to do with a bowling ball. You know, but there is a wrong fit. The wrong fit is the one that actually hurts you. If you're in pain, if you are hindered, you can't do what you want to do with a bowling ball, you have the wrong fit. You need to fix it. So,
hey, Travis. Yeah, the pro shop's open 12 till 7 all through the week. I'm not 100% sure on the weekends. Yeah, you should always go in, get it fit, see Gary or Tony or Jeff. That they're all good. That they'll hook you up. Yeah. So, all right, JR. Well, thank you. It's been interesting. It's definitely always good to get another perspective. What's your address for your YouTube channel? What should people look for? I'll put it in the description as well. But what is it? Your channel name?
Just look up JR Raymond. It'll pop right up. Or you get the ball reviews are over at bowlerx.com. So you can go over there. But everybody should go to easybowlingstats.com. We've got a new app out there that is pretty cool. So there's some pretty cool stuff over there too. So that's an actual, like a stat keeping track, an app that it has AI introduced. So it's actually a ball rep too. So if you buy the premium version of it, it learns from you. You input all your information. It keeps track of all your arsenal. It will actually use AI to detect if you have holes in your arsenal, if there's bowling balls if there's certain layouts that would probably benefit you. And as you use the app more and it learns from you, it can actually give you advice. It's like, I'm leaving 10 pins. Here's where I'm standing. Here's where I'm throwing. This is what I'm bowling on. These are the balls I've used. And it takes all the information you've ever put into it and it separates it based on patterns, ball choices, everything. It just learns from you and it will start to tell you exactly the types of moves that will work for you. Here's what worked in the past. Here's what didn't work in the past. I would probably try doing this. And it's just there to help you keep track of your stats, everything as far as spares go, your strike percentages, all that. It keeps track of all your stats for every single bowling ball. So it'll give you an average on how well you do with certain bowling balls. So if you want to separate them into like all solid bowling balls, here's the average and here's what the solid bowling balls that you've done best with. You know, so it keeps track of everything, but it's at easybowlingstats.com. So it's just a website that you can use the app on a website and it acts just like an app. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. There is a free account, so you don't have to use the AI stuff. You can just keep track of all your stats and stuff. But the AI thing is going to be, it's going to be really cool once everybody starts getting their input, all their stuff put in there.
Okay, we should have led with that. All right. Well, I will see you around. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir.
Will, get you back next time you say something else that's dumb that fires up the Twitter bowling world.
Oh, it won't be long from now. Trust me.
All right, mate. Take care of yourself. See you later.
All right. Take care, guys. We'll see y'all later.
Thanks, guys. All right. So I've got to just quickly run this. You can go if you want. You can stay, JR. It's up to you. But I'm going to thank the sponsors that support us: Storm, Rotogrip, 900 Global, Coolwick, Bowlers Mart, Turbo, Firelake Bowling Center, Bye Bye JR, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford. And with that, I will see you on Thursday. I will try and find something to keep us entertained. And do you know when the tour schedule comes out? No idea. Unfortunately, I haven't had any. And suck it, Sooner. I will see you on Thursday. Take it easy. Bye-bye now.